As I alluded to on the previous slides, learning vocabulary in a non-native tongue is very difficult, but there are three major ways that we can learn or more readily learn vocabulary: through conversation and routines, through reading books and imaginative play, and by looking at an order or a continuum, if you will. And I will talk about that a little bit more on the next slide. But think about those things that you do every day. You wake up, you brush your teeth, you eat breakfast, you get dressed, you go to school. If you're labeling things that would come up in conversation on what did you do this morning or what did you have for lunch today, you are going to learn the language a little more quickly. Next, book reading and imaginative play. Playing promotes language. When kids are playing, they often repeat themselves, right? Do you want the shovel? I said, do you want the shovel? Would you like the shovel? Well, if you're holding a shovel and you're saying shovel over and over and over again, you're going to more easily learn that this, even though this is a fork, sorry, that's what I had handy, is a shovel, because you've heard it now 5 times. On the next slide, we're going to look at the order for learning language. For the developmental process, there are 5 stages. The silent period, where you're focusing on trying to understand language in your environment. A lot of times students in this stage just sit and absorb. They sit, they look, they listen, they watch. They're like little sponges. Very, very infrequently do they actually say anything. The next developmental stage for language development is that early production stage. You've got about 1,000 words in your vocabulary and you can speak in short little phrases. Think about a toddler. My fork. They're learning English as well. In the third stage, speech really begins to pick up. You now know about 3,000 words and you're beginning to understand the context in which they're used. You can start reading small stories and understand the premise or the lesson behind that story. The fourth stage, as we're going up this continuum, is that intermediate fluency. We're almost there, but not quite. Okay? You know about 6,000 words. Your complexity is that a word? It may not be. Sorry. Your sentences may become more complex. You're not just speaking in those short little phrases, but you are using those much longer sentences and maybe even constructing multiple sentences tied to one another. The last and the ultimate end goal in fluency is reaching that advanced stage of fluency. It's when you are having discussions, when you are having conversations, and you are speaking almost as if it was in your fluent tongue. For that social communication, or that intermediate fluency, if you will, it takes about 3 to 5 years to come to complete understanding for that social communication in another language. However, when we're talking about academic communication and those complex vocabulary words and terms, it's going to take a solid 4 to 7 years to truly understand everything that you're being taught in a second language. So think about that. I want you to ponder that for a minute. If you are going to another school in another country, for example, I have often gotten Japanese students into my classroom whose families have come to work at Nikon. Well, they're here for 2 years, and then they go back to their native land. They're never really achieving any sort of fluency, neither social nor academic. They're just learning to get by. They're learning a lot, but they're learning to get by. until it's time for them to go home and return to their native land.